Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on the Egyptian-Algerian ties. Now, this is in light of Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly's visit to the capital, Algiers of Algeria, last week, trying to look for another maritime route to encourage and strengthen the economic cooperation between both countries. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the stories making the news today. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held a meeting with the Ministerial Economic Group with the attendance of Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly and a number of ministers and senior officials. During the meeting, President el-Sisi was briefed on the primary results of the general budget performance for the fiscal year 2021-22, as the growth revenue rate reached 20% and the expenses rate 15%, while the surplus achieved was £97 billion or 1.3%. The President tackled the Ministry of Finance's plan to reduce the general debt during the coming period, as he directed to decrease the debt of domestic products and rationalize the governmental spending. El-Sisi instructed to continue controlling the state's general financial performance and boosting the social protection programs. The head of state also ordered to continue increasing investments to enlarge production and provide job opportunities, as well as funding the health and educational programs. Also, the Suez Canal Authority announced today an all-time revenue record, earning $7 billion during the last fiscal year following a series of toll hikes for vessels transiting the vital waterway. The Suez Canal Authority Chief Osama Rabia said that between July 2021 and June 2022, Egypt's fiscal year, some 1.32 billion tons of cargo is shipped through the canal. The income is over a fifth higher than the previous fiscal year's $5.8 billion in transit fees, and the highest figure ever recorded. Rabia added that global crises have proven the importance of the Suez Canal to ensuring the sustainability of global supply chains. Connecting the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, the canal accounts for roughly 10% of global maritime trade. The SCA has hiked passage tolls for transiting vessels, including fuel tankers, twice this year. In April, the waterway recorded its highest ever monthly revenue of $629 million, despite the rise in oil prices due to the Russia-Ukraine war. Earlier this year, the SCA reported the canal's highest annual revenue for a calendar year, netting $6.3 billion in 2021. And joining us now over the phone to shed on the all-time record revenue of the Suez Canal Authority, we're joined by Dr. Aliaa El Mahdy, the Professor of Economics at Cairo University. Dr. Mahdy, can you hear me?
Well, good evening, sir, and good evening to your audience and our audience. Well,
good evening, Dr. Mahdy.
The good news that
yes.
Suez Canal achieved this year the highest possible returns in as long as I have lived is quite a good, very good news. $7 billion has never been achieved before. That's why it's the president. It's the first time it happens, and this comes in a very good time where we are in need of foreign reserves. So I believe that such a figure will help a lot in increasing our foreign reserves.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Mahdy, this is an all-time. Excuse me, Dr. Mahdy. Dr. Mahdy, can you hear me?
Because the Suez Canal, the movement in Suez Canal and the ships that are going through it are increasing in numbers and thus increasing in revenues. This means that the international trade is picking up, and this means that our forecasting of a bleak future or stagnating future, I hope they are not true. I'm talking about the international market. So more shipments, more ships going through the Suez Canal mean that the world, the global economy is moving forward. Is picking up, is working, going back to its normal, maybe better than its normal increase in foreign trade. So that's also a very good signal to everybody, and amongst them Egypt.
Dr. Mahdy, now $7 billion, the highest all-time revenue recorded by the Suez Canal. Did this happen in spite of the world crises taking place, the Ukraine-Russian conflict? Did it allow more vessels transiting through the Suez Canal? Or do you think that revenues could have even been higher than $7 billion, but because of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, it only actually stood at $7 billion, which is still an all-time record?
Yeah, it's an all-time record, and it's happening despite the war in Ukraine, the Russian-Ukrainian war. And maybe the international trade is making up for the decline in the Russian and Ukrainian, trade, and they are trying to make it up to the world by increasing production in other regions of the world. So I guess I might say who is passing through Suez Canal, usually it's trade coming from Asia, East and Southeast Asia, through the Suez Canal to Europe. So the winners in this case are the Eastern and Southeast Asian countries. They are trying to supply the world with the products or part of the products that are have declined due to the Russian-Ukrainian war, which is a good sign that despite everything, the world economy is moving forward. I mean, this should give us, an optimistic view of the future.
Dr. Mahdy, now, this revenue, I mean, the prices have increased twice during the past year for the tolling fees of the cargo ships. Now, do you expect that more prices would increase for the cargo ships passing through the Suez Canal? Should we increase it even more? Is it a reason achieving this an all-time record? Is it because of the increased number of vessels or because of the higher prices for passing through the Suez Canal?
Well, I can't tell you whether it's because of the increased number of vessels. I hope so, not because of an increase in the fees of passing through the Suez Canal. Because if it is due to the increase in cargoes and in ships and so on, this would give us a very good optimistic outlook of the future. If it is due to the increase in the prices or the fees of passing through the Suez Canal, this would not be as good as the first situation. So I hope we don't increase the fees that much in Suez Canal, so that we can allow more and more ships to pass through it, and then the return at the end will be to our benefit. So we might raise the fees a little bit, but not excessive, so that we allow for more and more ships to pass through the Suez Canal.
Well, Doctor, should we be expecting for the next year that we would achieve another all-time record high of revenues for the Suez Canal? Or do you feel that, or what should be actually done to guarantee an all-time revenue for the Suez Canal?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very clearly, but I guess I've got the question about our expectations of next year. I guess it all depends on the situation in the Russian-Ukrainian war. If it still continues during the beginning of next year, then we expect more and more cargoes and ships to be passing through Suez Canal, and this might raise the revenues even more. If the war ends, it might, the shipments might be back again, lower again. In terms of number, I mean less again in terms of number of ships and so on. So I cannot give you any forecasting or expectations of what will happen with the beginning of next year. It all depends on the international situation. Has the war ended or not? This is number one. Are the eastern and southeastern Asian countries trying to replace Russia and Ukraine, even if the war stopped, if they are going to replace them in the world market? This is another question. Are we going to raise the prices or the fees of Suez Canal or not? This is the third question. So you cannot give a straightforward answer, but it all depends on the changes that are happening and taking place all the time in the international arena.
Yes.
My suggestion is that we try to keep our fees constant, fixed for a while, and try to make use of the increase in ships, a number of ships that are passing through Suez Canal.
Well, regardless of whether the Russian-Ukrainian conflict ends or not, or regardless of any political developments taking place around the world, what can the Suez Canal Authority do to guarantee an increase on the $7 billion revenue for next year?
I'm sorry, could you pose the question once again?
Regardless of the resumption or end of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, and regardless of the political developments taking place around the world, what can the Suez Canal Authority do to guarantee an addition, more revenue, and build on the $7 billion that have been achieved this time around for next year? Well,
this is just a guess that I can say that the world has been going through a recession for like 3-4 years now. And you know, when you go through the business cycle, the international business cycle, it goes to a climax, and then it goes down to the trough and starts again to pick up. So I guess we went to the lowest limit during those last 2 or 3 years. And at the end, it has to pick up again. And what we have achieved this year, $7 billion, might be a lot more in the next year. How much more, I don't know. I cannot tell. No one can tell, I guess. But I hope it will, if the international trade is picking up, then we might as well see higher numbers of higher income coming to Suez Canal.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Aliaa Al-Mahdy, the professor of economics at Cairo University. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahdy, for joining us. Definitely good news for the Egyptian economy, good news for the Suez Canal Authority achieving an all-time record of revenue amounting to $7 billion. Now, let's focus on tonight's topic in hand, the trade and economic cooperation between Egypt and Algeria. The Prime Minister was there last week and he spoke about trying to find alternative routes to finding and strengthening the trade between both countries. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.